So right now, I've got the notification to the people who might be interested in this uh, to tune in at 9 o'clock. So we got a minute and 40 seconds before that happens. I feel I don't have a huge list of things that I wanted to cover, but it feels a little bit unfair to just launch right into business related matters without giving somebody an opportunity to chime in with, their attention and all that. So let me just turn the phone off so that nobody interrupts us. Uh, so, what do we got? An extra minute or so? All right. Well, let's see. Does anybody here have anything that they want me to try to cover before the show? Please type it in. I'll be able to see it. Hey, Jeff. Nice to see you. Um, because if not, okay, there we go. Ever consider other filling mechanisms besides eyedropper and bulb? Sure. Let me answer that question in a minute. Let's bring the questions on, keep them coming, and when that minute passes up, or when it gets to be 9 o'clock or so, then we can go into that. When might you resume production? I'll get to that too. Hello, Mark. I'll get to that too. Bad video. Use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. That is so strange. Let's see. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Well, it is now 9 o'clock Central Time, and we can get over to the brunt of this live stream. In my description, hello everyone, and thank you for coming. Happy Fountain Pen Day. I hope you're having a good time using your arcane writing devices, which probably perplex almost everyone who has to work with you. So I wanted to cover what I'm working on, what I'm not working on, handle any questions, holiday season, and shoot the breeze. I was all ready to come shoot the breeze because I had this here with me, and I figured if the time got too dull, I'd probably spend some of it reading from some of my favorite passages of that. But now we got some information. Now we got some people, and we can probably just, well, we could probably launch right into that a little bit. So some good questions were just posed, and I suppose I can handle those. If it comes up again, I guess I can mention it again. Do I ever consider other filling mechanisms besides eyedropper and bulb? Yes. The short answer is absolutely. What filling systems do you have in mind? You know what? Let's just give it a few minutes before I get into that kind of question, because I think that probably has a wider appeal. I'll tell you what. Let's get to. Let me just read something here that might be interesting, and let's pass a little bit of time. Like when you go into a concert, and they say that it's rude to start a concert exactly on time, just in case something crazy happened for the people who wanted to come see it. So, one of my favorite passages I wanted to read out of this book. I don't know if there's any. I don't know if there are any Harry Potter fans out there, but one of my favorite passages I wanted to read. It's not too long. Please consider indulging me. Where is it? Oh boy, we're almost up to 10 people. Oh boy. Okay. Where is it? I didn't have it. 903. Oh, you are! Watching it with a Harry Potter fan right beside you. Let's just see. I want to give it some good context. If I can find it. Okay. So, one of my favorite passages is right after Harry Potter feels like, so I'm delighted that you are slightly behind the influence of my setting sun. Oh boy. No, no, no. No, no, no. Here I am. So, what are we at? 903. All right. So, just a little brief section here. This is out of book 7 of the Harry Potter series, and it's chapter 34, The Forest Again. In this section, our protagonist, Harry, was bequeathed the golden snitch, which was captured by him in, I believe, the first year at Hogwarts. And the golden snitch is if you catch this, you end the game, to the wizard game Quidditch. And he doesn't understand, for most of book 7, he didn't understand why his former headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, would give him this golden snitch. And it said on the outside, I open at the close, but he didn't know what it meant. Well, right before this moment that I'm going to begin reading from, he figured out what it meant. The forest again. Finally, the truth. Lying with his face pressed into the dusty carpet of the office where he had once thought he was learning the secrets of victory, Harry understood at last that he was not supposed to survive. His job was to walk calmly into death's welcoming arms. Along the way, he was to dispose of Voldemort's remaining links to life, so that when at last he flung himself across Voldemort's path and did not raise a wand to defend himself, the end would be clean, and the job that ought to have been done in Godric's Hollow would be finished. Neither would live, neither could survive. He felt his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. How strange that in his dread of death it pumped all the harder, valiantly keeping him alive. But it would have to stop, and soon. Its beats were numbered. How many would there be time for as he rose and walked through the castle for the last time, out into the grounds and out into the forest? Terror washed over him as he lay on the floor, with that funeral drum pounding inside him. Would it hurt to die? All those times he had thought it was about to happen and escaped, he had never really thought of the thing itself. His will to live had always been so much stronger than his fear of death. Yet it did not occur to him now to try to escape, to outrun Voldemort. It was over, he knew it, and all that was left was the thing itself. Dying. If he could only have died on that summer's night when he had left number 4 Privet Drive for the last time, when the noble phoenix feather wand had saved him. If he could only have died like Hedwig, so quickly he would have not known it had happened. Or if he could have launched himself in front of a wand to save someone he loved. He even envied his parents' death now. This cold-blooded walk to his own destruction would require a different type of bravery. He felt his fingers trembling slightly and made an effort to control them, although no one could see him. The portraits on the wall were all empty. 907. All right. Let's get back to the business. Let's see. So how are we doing here? Let's just see if I can make this thing full screen. Okay, so the first couple of things that I wanted to cover were about the holiday season and what I'm working on. And so I should probably just get to those because they're pretty interrelated. The first things that I wanted to make sure that I got, live stream help, please use a keyframe procedure. Jeez. Stream is good. Stream is healthy. 905. You know what? Okay. That's very disconcerting having this image up there, but I'll just carry on despite it. The holiday season, I wanted to come out with the procession, and the procession is, in short, the pen model that I wanted it to be making from the very beginning. Um, I got into this company because I wanted to do a fountain pen a wooden fountain pen that could hold flexible dip nibs that was affordable. And the Mercury, which, if any of you remembered, was a cylindrical pen. It's about this long, straight cylinder, very simple, not so much utilitarian, but just kind of a minimalist general appearance. I wanted to do that pen first because I needed to be able to make something that I could actually make. But the precession, people who know about the perihelion precession of Mercury could probably tell you about that. The precession was really the thing that I wanted to get at as a contoured, nice ergonomic contour, and I wanted to do a wooden section with it so the whole thing matches. And for this holiday season, I'm working on a set of these pens in eucalyptus burl, which is terribly dramatic wood. You could look this up if you want just eucalyptus burl. It's an extraordinarily beautiful wood. And some catalogs that I got, which I cut in an end grain fashion, not a long grain, but I cut it across the grain so that when you hold it, you can't really see the wood grain in the usual way. Usually when you look at a piece of wood and you can find one direction of it where you can see the grain of the wood running, say left to right, forward, back, up, down, whatever it might be, I cut this in the opposite direction. So when you look at it and you roll it around, you don't really see the wood grain quite as a pronounced fashion. Mostly all you're seeing is the end grain. If you imagine wood grain as being kind of a collection of straws, and the wood's porosity runs in the direction of the straws, it's kind of like you're staring straight into the holes where all the straws are. So it takes up a lot of finish, but it's extremely strong in that direction, much less acceptable to denting because that's how end grain wood is. And I'm pretty excited about it. Catalogs goes by the name Mexican Ebony. It's this really heavy, really strong, very dark purple. And the sapwood, I got a great piece. The sapwood is kind of yellowish cream. So I've got some pens like that. They're coming out. They've got wooden sections, wooden barrels, wooden caps, and pretty excited about that. So I'll be doing a procession in that material, a few of them in this eucalyptus burl wood, which all I can say is that if you imagine something so extraordinary that you just can't believe what you're looking at, that's what this stuff looks like. I didn't want to show pictures of it too soon, not until the pen was finished, because I didn't want to hurt anybody. This stuff is just incredible. So I figured, I just wait until the thing is ready. But I wanted to do a procession out of that. I've also got some vintage organic composite, which I referenced in my most recent mass email, where I talked about how environmental friendliness is kind of what I want to strive for. And one of the things that I'll accept is material that is, say, a composite of biodegradable materials, and I happen to have a little bit of it. The stuff that I have right now is kind of a metallic lavender and black with longitudinal striations. So I'm pretty excited about that. Processions in that. I've also got a wood composite, which I showed at the DC Pen Show, and it was pretty popular. This is basically, if you imagine what a piece of plywood looks like, it's basically a pen made out of that, except the plywood is dyed. This stuff is midnight blue, and all the grain is running in the same direction, and it's highly polished, and it's very shiny. So I've got a fair amount of that. Let's see. Yeah, so I've got a fair amount of that. Let's see. Oh, right, and I've got two other ebonite pens coming out. For those of you who saw my Shorty pens on sale on the website, the Shorty pen has an 8-sided tapered faceted cap. The pens that I'm working on now are a little bit smaller diameter, but they are 12-sided, faceted cap, faceted barrel. It's a lot of work to do, but I think I figured out a good way of doing it. So I'm doing those in some super fancy pants, expensive German ebonite, in kind of a black with green, black with blue, and then there's this one that's got like green, raspberry, and raspberry colors and a couple other things in there. It's pretty extreme, and so I'm going to do some of those. Those will all come out in time for the holiday season. Right, so that's what I'm working on right now. Relative to the holiday season. Let's see. So let's get to some questions. And if any of you guys have follow-up questions to the questions that I answer, please chime in, or anything else, that's just fine. Let's see, what do we got here? So I'll get to the questions. Ever consider other filling mechanisms besides eyedropper and bulb? Well, absolutely. Cartridge converter. Sure, I've thought of that. Cartridges for flex pens. In my experience, when people use a converter, they put a converter onto one of my flex pens, but the flow's not always great because the bore of the converter doesn't usually keep up terribly well with high flex demands. You've got basically an ink using device, the nib, that can suck ink so much faster out than the converter really wants to put out. That's not always that great. Cartridges are just the same except worse because the aperture is even smaller. So that's not a great situation. When you're going to get more esoteric than that, sure, I've thought of pistons. I've got a little sketch that I wanted to do of a piston with a number of great features to it. I've got a bunch of really great cocobolo that I want to do experiment with and doing a piston out of that because I think it would look very nice. I love a good piston. African blackwood, cocos wood, I just talked about cocobolo. African blackwood. Yes, I've thought about it, but I don't know what cocos wood is. But the big problem to me with using black woods is, once you've given it a finish that can handle handling well, it tends to just look like plastic, so you kind of lose out on most of the benefits. Like I made some ebony pens back in 2014, and after you put on a finish and polish, you couldn't tell it wasn't plastic, and so it's kind of almost pointless. But I like. I'll tell you what. So Mark, why do you ask about African blackwood, cocos wood, or cocobolo? I guess the question is why those. So that one, okay. I also have some ideas for more esoteric filling systems. I'll let you answer that question. Some more esoteric filling systems from yesteryear. I don't want to go into those too much. You got to save a little bit. But years ago, I'm sure some of you remember that I talked about doing a safety pen. That is still on the books, and I have not dropped that idea. Nathan Tardif of Noodler's Inc. has come out with a safety pen that he seems to be happy with, and I think he's going to be selling it at something like a $55 price point. I have no idea how he's making a pen that works and that looks good out of ebonite at $55 with all of those mechanical parts. I don't know how he's doing it, but if he can do that, I think that's fantastic. The safety pen that I wanted to do is actually closer to the Waterman safety. He's doing something after more the more safety, but I like the more safety. So he's yeah. You can get by on $12 a pen in India. So yeah, I thought about the safety pen an awful lot. I've done vacuumatics, I have done vacuumatics. I will do more vacuumatics. When you do a vacuumatic, you spend so much time developing all this infrastructure to do our vacuumatics. To not do it almost seems like a sin, except especially when you know how to do it. So I've done and I will do vacuumatics. Let's see. The shorty that you just saw is some of those are pump fillers. Some of those are eyedroppers, but some of those are done DUNN style pump fillers where you stick the nib in the ink, unscrew the knob, pull it out, and then you pump the thing to fill it. And I'm pretty excited about that. I like that because you don't have to use a sack that wears out. It's just about seals, friction fits, and O-rings. And I'm pretty happy about that. Also mentioned, worth thinking about, if anybody ever wanted to think about getting an ebonite dateless, I really thought about doing it as a Japanese style eyedropper, but we'll move on to that some other time. The Cocobolo is a great wood because it's just naturally pretty much waterproof. I think those looks look great. Natural oiled wood, so if I made you a pen out of ebony or Cocobolo or something, or lignum vitae. I love those woods. They are durable enough to be just standalone. A Delrin sleeve for an eyedropper style body work? Sure it will. Absolutely. Delrin has a hard time of adhering. I'd probably use ABS. But, the issue with those unfinished wooden pens is that they stain. And I don't know about you guys, but, if anybody is familiar with the Monte Grappa Moscow Mule, it's this bright, big, golden, oversized copper pen that's, just beautiful. And there's all this talk about, when you get the pen, the first thing you get is you got to get that gloss off of it. And, you got to let it develop that patina and all that nonsense. And I just hate that. The idea of patina to me just feels like this is an object that we just haven't been able to clean effectively. And when I look at one like that, I think that just feels cheap to me. I would like a natural finish on a pen, but I need to think about how I want to do that. I would like to think about how I do that because that Catalox that I mentioned earlier, with all of its end grain, it really is such a durable wood that, putting some thick plastic feeling coating on it really doesn't feel right. I have some ideas on how to do that. Straight oil, sure, but those finishes wear off somewhat. I have some ideas. I'll think about that some more. A natural finish with this. That would be great. What was the other one? Let's see. Blackwood Cocobolo. And for example, I had a lignum vitae pen that I made a few years ago that got ink stains on it, and that didn't strike me as a patina. It just struck me as dirty, and nobody wants that. But yeah, I think about some of those woods. I like the feeling of natural wood. Like when you have an ebonite pen, part of it is that it's shiny, but it doesn't feel glossy and slick. It doesn't bother. It isn't irritating like that, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that idea. So I definitely do think about that. But I got to figure out a way of doing it so it doesn't look stupid or doesn't just get dirty. But we'll think about it. If you guys have any ideas, feel free to email me at desideratapens@gmail.com, and we can talk about things like this. What was the other question? Other eyedropping filler system. When might I resume production of my full-size pen styles? Mark Wygant. Full-size pen styles. I gotta ask, just what do you mean, Mark, by full-size? Let's see here. Yeah. Full size. I'll have to get some feedback on that. Not a show. Well, okay. Well, everything else. The shorty is the exception. But for what it's worth, I find the shorty very. I don't have it with me. Yeah, the shorty is pretty comfortable to hold, even for me with my Empirically proven large hands, as I could show you from that picture of me with SBRE Brown. Let's see. Yeah, so full-size pens. I mean, what do we got? All right, so this is more or less the size of an Icarus, and you know, this is about, yeah, it's about 5.5 inches. I'd say that's full size, but yeah, the reason I was curious is, I mean, sure, the shorty is the exception, but sometimes when people say full size, they can mean something like, like oversized. I don't know what happened, but when you look at a modern fountain pen like a TWSBI, some of the more expensive stuff that Pilot is coming out with, you see the trend is these pens that, when you compare them to, say, a vintage pen, are just gigantic. In fact, when I made this, for years I've been trying to find the most stable and comfortable way of making a pen that I feel like is as big as can be, excuse me, within the confines of my construction parameters, within the what do you call it, the kind of raw material that I like to use. And so when I made this is a wood glass model from back from a few months ago. I sold a few of these at the DC Pen Show. At first I made it with the biggest section that I could manage, and honestly, I figured if I have large hands, and I came across a pen size that was too big for me to feel comfortable holding in whatever permutations I could come up with, it was probably too big, and I hit that pretty easily. I would say, as I decided for this pen, the right size for it, this is actually about as big as I would want to go. I could go bigger, but this is enough, and I think that's something that I gotta try to keep that in mind. With pen grips, bigger isn't always better. Longer is not always better. So, yeah, 5.5 inches. All right, sure. So I got this. I don't know where it is, but I have this TWSBI Diamond 580. That what is it? I got this TWSBI Diamond 580 that I bought a few years ago, and I showed it when I first. It was one of the earliest fountain pens that I got. I showed it to a friend of mine, and the TWSBI 580 is about 5.5 inches ish, unposted. And so he gets the pen out, and before he does anything, he's trying to jam. He doesn't use fountain pens, my friend. He's trying to jam the cap on the back of it, and in doing so, it just, I don't know what to tell you. It just, he almost cracked the cap, but the pen was like a foot long at that point. It was just so big. I wondered if he, in holding the pen, felt like this is just ridiculous. Because when you take the pen unposted and you write with it, it feels okay, but it's still a pretty big pen. When you put a cap on it and you shift its center of balance all the way back, it's like writing with a pool cue. I don't know what he was thinking, but some people seem to like big pens and they don't mind posting them, and that just baffles me. So if needing just a giant statement, I want this thing to stick 6 feet out of my pocket to let people know that I'm carrying a fountain pen. If that's what people are looking for, good Lord, you need to go to somebody else, because I'm not doing that. I just can't feel right about doing something like this. It's just crazy. Yeah, they're not real people. They're who knows? Who knows? That's ridiculous. So anyhow, so I covered the safety pin, the protege, covered the stuff coming out for Christmas. And incidentally, I want to put some of it out a little bit before Thanksgiving, so I have enough time to actually cook for Thanksgiving, so things come out well. So hopefully in a couple of weeks. I just finished the sections today. The sections, like I told you, I'm doing these pens that I swear, if this comes out well, these are going to be some of the most beautiful pens that I've ever done, and the kind of pens that I wanted to do since the beginning. The sections are the most complicated parts. So when those come out, I think after we get done with the barrels, the caps will be easier, And when it comes time, pretty much the most difficult part is up for finishing. And I'll get to the finishing in, hopefully a couple of weeks. So I want you to have these ready for Christmas, and I'm very much open to the idea of, depending on where you live, maybe we can have a little promotion to help you to get some high-speed shipping, because when you're ordering presents for people, you really don't want to be worried about whether or not it'll get there on time. So, that's something I'm cognizant of, and we'll just have to keep in mind. So that's what I'm working on. What I'm not, I said what I am not working on. What am I not working on? Metal pens. I am not working on any metal pens right now. Those prefer yeah, Mark. Those who prefer a broomstick or a wand-sized fountain pen may not actually be used to legible handwriting. Yeah, but I don't get it. There's a really, really nice man that I meet at pen shows, whose name is Gerardo, and he's got a pen store in Paris. And I asked him what he sells, and he sells almost exclusively limited edition modern pens. For example, like that Sylvester Stallone skull pen, which is like a little piece of gold that they willed a fountain pen out of, that's got all sorts of skulls and crossbones and rubies and teeth and bullshit sticking out of it. And the pen weighs 10 pounds. Such a device, I'm sure it's pretty, but can you use it? Can you use it? It's like, there's a guy I knew from when I was a kid who's the kind of guy who would go out and buy an osmium sledgehammer. If it was available, he would go out and buy like an osmium sledgehammer encased in uranium-238, for hardness. Only because he knows osmium is the densest metal, and uranium-238 is what you use on armor-piercing bullets. And if we told him that I'm going to make a sledgehammer out of that, it's going to be the hardest, heaviest sledgehammer that anybody's ever seen. Even though, oh wait, paddy wagon, all right. Yeah, even though that sledgehammer would weigh like 90 pounds and you'd never be able to lift it, he would buy it. I don't get it. I just don't get it. To me, a pen is supposed to be an enjoyable tool. But it's got to be a tool. It's just got to be a tool, So those are my points. Anybody has any questions or wants to shoot the breeze or anything like that? Now's the time. Chime in with a question or an answer or a comment or any of that craziness, and we can talk about that. But if not, it is 9:30. So I'm doing pretty well on schedule here. So any questions? Okay. Well, folks, thank you for joining my very first ever live stream. Okay, I thought it was out. All right. Well, how many pens do I? Thanks for taking the time to stage it. Stage it. Yeah, this is my room. Okay, you're very welcome, Mark. You're very welcome. How many pens do I make in a year? It's really hard to say. I can give you an average of how many pens I've made over the last few years. But exactly how many, I could tell you how many pens I've made. I could tell you how many pens I could make this year, and it's going to be, you're not going to get the right answer. I guess, I could tell you this year, how many? I've probably made 2017. Oh, I've probably made 400 pens this year, something like that. But early on, way at the beginning, I was saying that production and quantities are going to be limited until I can figure out ways of getting production up that satisfies the necessary business requirements. And I feel like I'm getting pretty darn close to that. This set of pens that I'm working on for the holidays, I'm working on over 100 or so of them, and I think I'm getting pretty close to finished. It's exhausting, but I feel like I'm getting much better. Do I know who started Fountain Pen Day? Sure. Kerry Yeager is on Fountain Pen. He's on Fountain Pen Day. I think he does fountainpenday.com. He's on Instagram as Fountain Pen Day. He does. He's a pen collector. He's a guy who loves pens, obviously, and I think he also works for Kenro. I think he does shows. And he realized a few years ago that I think there's a National Donut Day, there's a National, Potted Pie Day, Potted Plant Day, or Topiary Day, you name it. Where's the Fountain Pen Day? And so he picked one and said, okay, first Friday in November, bam, Fountain Pen Day. And that, friends, is how Fountain Pen Day was started. If I had a second choice, King Pierre, thank you for this. Your journey to kingship is inspiring and shows great courage to go out on your own. We appreciate it, and I appreciate you, Mr. Contravejos. I appreciate you, your support, and all of your fine commentary. Please carry on, my noble subject. Mark Wygent, if you had a second choice for a dip nib suited to your which of your pens, if I had a second choice, what would it be? Well, I actually do have a second choice. It's just hard. The Gillette 303. Right now, my pens can, with a little bit of noodling, get one of the most popular calligraphy nibs in it, the Leonard Principal Extra Fine. Great nib. The QC is not great with those pens. Sometimes you get one where the tines are not, where the slit is not in the center. And the same with the Gillette 303, but the Gillette 303 is like a third the cost. Yeah, the Leonard Principal Extra Fine is a great one, but you can already do that with one of my pens if you mess with it. The Hunt 101 is a great calligraphy nib, but it doesn't handle the rust nearly as well as the Zebra G, so I didn't do that because you'd burn it out. If you just had it in your pen for one night, you'd destroy it. Plus, the Hunt 101 has a huge learning curve, like the Hunt 22. It's just too hard to learn how to master for a lot of people, and it's just not what you want to do. So the Gillette 303, though, is great because it's really finicky. It's really high performance, low pressure, huge flex. It's a really great nib, but it's also hard to manage. But because it's so hard to get to write smoothly on the paper, you don't really notice it when it wears out through rust. The thing that you would notice with the Gillette 303 wearing out over time is its inability to do a good hairline anymore. So you would use it and it would rust, but you're already just barely, there's only like 6 atoms of the nib in contact with the paper anyway. When you're using it, you don't notice. So I'd probably go for that one second. So let's see. Do I have a relatively easy way to extend the life of the tip of the extending the life? Okay. Do you have a relatively easy way to extend the life of the tip of a Zebra G? No. I tried repolishing a Zebra G to buy you more time, but so a couple of years ago I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just kind of ever so slightly grind a little bit onto the side to try to regain the hairline. And then I did that and I realized, okay, it got finer, but it's unusably scratchy. It's terrible. So I thought, all right, so I'll get some sandpaper, some 2000 grit, some micro mesh or something, and I'll just polish it a little bit, try to remove some of the corrosion. After you get done with that, you end up with a slightly broader pen. And remember, the key to flex writing is not having huge flex, but having fast return from thick and thin and having a hairline. So you can have a super flex nib that only goes up to 1.5 millimeters if the hairline is 0.1. That's like 15 times, the change. It's all about dynamics. Well, when you've polished it out and you lose a little hairline, suddenly the pen doesn't really look. It doesn't write quite like a flex nib, as it just writes like a regular fountain pen nib that just has moments of really high flow. you kind of lose that. You lose that subtlety. Like I play the piano, and when you go for too long without tuning your piano, or when you go for any amount of time, the first thing that you lose is that shine, that extreme high performance, those great, brilliant colors that just sparkle on the highest ends of the sound spectrum, highest extremes of it. And that's the first thing you lose. And when you lose fineness with a Zebra G, the first thing you lose is that great smooth feeling, which, believe it or not, the Zebra G can be an extremely smooth nib when you know what you're doing. You sandpaper that off, you might buy yourself another an hour or so of good use, but the next day it gets even scratchier than before, and so then you have to remove more material, which incidentally opens up more of the metal to being rusted, which makes it rust even faster, and it just gets into this cycle where at some point you basically lost the nib. No. An idea that I thought was kind of interesting, related topic, is to, how do you put it, not, or I should say, to strategically not clean the nib, or to clean the nib in such a way that you leave as much of it free, leave as much of the wax intact, leave as much of the wax intact as you can, but still allow it to write. That, I think, is like one of those transcendental cheap bastard techniques. If you can figure out how to make that work, I commend your efforts. It's like there was a TV show I think I used to watch called Extreme Cheapskates, and they had this family that this family with a lot of kids, to save money, they would have a special sanitized bin right by their toilet where they would put in towels. So this family stopped buying toilet paper, and they would just dump them, you do your business, and then you dump the towel into this bin, which was then held and washed later. I guess you could save some money doing it that way, and it's good for the environment, but wow, that's kind of how I feel. Yeah, wow. But I'm sure there's some ways of avoiding it. Personally, I think with the nib, once I clean the nib and I don't want to have to go through that process again, I just take it out, put the cap on, store the thing point up, and then just come back to it when it's late. Come back to it later. But in terms of how to make that easier, that's a pen design that I am working on. That I'm going to call the Steward, which is going to cover that. It'll be the answer to all flex pens, and when you get that, you'll have no other reason to buy anything else. But I'll give you more information on that when the time is right. Jane Casby. You loved it. Follow my instructions, no problems. Write beautifully. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. That is wonderful to hear. That is just wonderful. Okay. Any other questions? We are doing at plus 11 minutes here. This is peppermint tea. It's not hard liquor. Okay. Well, looks like we've gotten our questions answered. We had a nice fountain pen day, and it seems that you guys were able to hear me. So I just call that a Scottish Plex pen. The first one, former, the Steward, in the sense of stewardship. Take good care of the nib, pen will treat you well, kind of like that. Yeah. But, we'll keep that to ourselves for the moment. I'm very excited about it. I wanted to have it ready for a friend of mine for the DC Pen show, but, usual things. One problem showed up, and of course it derailed the whole show. But oh yeah. But yeah, well, I'll get to that one. That would be the Flex Pen to end all Flex Pens, and I want to do it. All right. Well, thank you for your help, Mark. Jane Casby, Michael Contravejos, forgot my username, and everybody else. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you, Mom. Yes, that is the word. I want to thank all of you for coming, and until the next time, email me or let me know how you like this video, what you wanted to talk about, and maybe we can do this again sometime. We don't just have to do it on the first Friday of November. So in the meantime, you guys have a great day, and goodbye.